Welcome to the Getting Real with Hillary show. Inspiring stories that change lives. Where ordinary heroes tell their extraordinary stories of how they have triumphed over unexpected challenges. This is where we say what can't be said and use the AAA formula for freedom. Awareness, acceptance, and action. Now, here's your host, Hillary Burns.
Welcome to another episode of the Getting Real with Hillary show, where, as they just said, we talk about what can't be said and the AAA formula for freedom. And stay tuned for news about my upcoming book. It's going to be out in the next few weeks. I'm very excited about it. So stay tuned for more announcements. And today, I am so pleased. I always start when I introduce people, but I am here with my very good friend, Marel Sterling, who is she's just so inspirational to me, what she does in the world. She is a California licensed professional fiduciary in her 10th year of that. And her mission is to bring dignity and workability to her clients. And when you hear about the kind of clients that she has in the second section of this interview, you will be very impressed and very moved by who she is in the world. So welcome, Marel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Hillary. This is such a privilege to be here with you this morning. And as you said, we've known each other. Actually, I realized we've never met in person, but we've done so much work together on Zoom. So this is perfect.
Yes. Well, thank you. And, we were talking in the pre-show. So we have the halftime and we have the pre-show, and we don't have the, what do they call it? Where you, my brain has gone to the football games where you have the bar, whatever they have in the parking lot. Yeah. Anyway, in the
tailgate. Yeah,
the tailgating. Thank you. So we were talking in our tailgating session about some things in your past, because we're all about inspiring people, people who have overcome, not so great things, and inspiring them with how you have overcome it. And maybe some people are still struggling and they would be, it would help them. So I don't know, you had mentioned a few things. Do you want to mention them, or do you want me to prompt you with which ones?
Sure. No, I'm happy to. I'd like to preface this with saying that there was many years where I kept journals. And then one day I looked through them and I said, this is so boring. This is what's in my head. And I shredded them all. Which I think kind of represents my relationship to my past. I mean, there's not really, when you look at it, it's kind of boring, but the fact is that when things happened, I made decisions that I then were like rules that I followed. And the first decision that I can think that I made is I went through all the schooling. I went to a really good college, UCSD. I got a degree in chemistry. I married my chemistry lab teaching assistant. And then I'm sitting there, I'm going, I'm miserable. And I just went, I have no idea why I'm miserable. I'm going to run off and join the human potential movement. Which I did, actually.
And what you, for people like me who don't know what that means, what did that mean?
Yeah, well, during the late 60s and early 70s, there was, in California, there were Esalen and things happening in San Francisco, and it's kind of combined with being a flower child and all of that. But it was like all of these great thinkers psychologically were putting forth theories about why people were the way they are. And here I was unhappy, and I didn't know why I was unhappy. So I went to go find some resources about people who were looking at what happens internally that can affect us. So I call that the human potential movement. It was the idea of discovering how you can expand by looking at what's stopping you, and that whole world.
And did you bring your TA husband with you, or did you leave him behind?
Well, I wanted to, but he was rather reluctant, and eventually we got divorced.
Okay.
Not because I wanted to, because my idea was I'm going to figure out what's wrong with me, and you figure out what's wrong with you, and we can get back together again. In the meantime, he found somebody else to marry and have children. So that's what he wanted. And yeah, he's a really fine guy. There was nothing about him. It was all over here. So I ended up joining a 24-hour encounter group. Encounter groups were the rage in the human potential movement. It's where people got together and they said what they normally wasn't said about each other, about themselves, and so on. And so I eventually, this group became a community, a spiritual community. And I was there for 20 years with those people. I mean, it was just
24 hours a day, 20
well,
years?
we didn't, I mean, we slept and things like that, but pretty much.
But I mean, you lived there. You lived in this.
Yeah, yeah. It was a physical community, and we lived very modestly. And we also followed, we didn't take vows of celibacy and poverty, but we kind of lived that way because it was a very simple life. And then we got to process what was going on.
Now, can I ask you,
sure.
I've heard of communes. Would you call it a commune, or is that something different?
You could call it a commune. I
don't even know what a commune is. I had heard the word. I was wondering if, when you live someplace.
It was a commune in my world, or in my mind, a commune is more like, how can we focus on using our joint physical resources to live together?
Yeah.
And this didn't have that emphasis. We lived in the middle of Pacific Beach, which is a community of San Diego. And it was more like who we were for each other and with each other and talking about it. And the basis of the idea was, well, human beings are scarred and they've got wounds and we want to heal them. And we're going to heal them by having these great relationships with each other. But what happened that didn't work, that did not work, is it's like the idea of, well, I'm hurting over here, so you're not treating me right. And that just did not work. Just did not work. And
now,
so
can I ask a question? You were there
Sure.
for 20 years. Did you have another job, or did you have to work, or was that?
Well, good question. So
survive?
one of the things that
cha-ching.
Yeah. So one of the things that happened is we cared for an autistic young woman, who was nonverbal, self-destructive, required 24-hour-a-day care. So as a community, we took care of her, and in exchange, her parents paid the community. And so room and board were provided, and a little bit of a stipend. So as I said, we lived very modestly, and that's how we survived.
And 20 years, so what ages were you there? Like, you had graduated college, you got married?
It was 24 to 44.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were happy?
It was, I was very engaged. It felt how it was for me is that we were seeking a way of people living together that could bring, could reveal a way that human beings could be together and be healed and bring peace to the world. It was kind of like a vision of utopia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay.
Yeah,
Now,
well, I mean, and we did all sorts of things. We traveled across the country in a converted school bus, and I learned how to drive a school bus through the streets of New York City.
how
I mean, it
many
was
people
really,
were
did-
people were there?
there
How
were
many?
18.
18. Wow. For
Yeah.
20 years. For 20 years.
Well, the population dwindled, and by the time I left, there were only 6.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure.
Who knew?
Yeah.
Mild-mannered Marel. Right. Wow. That's amazing. So, okay.
So then, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
What's your next question?
All right. You had said earlier, and it's not a happy topic, but you had said something about being molested. Where was that?
Yeah.
Was that prior
Yeah.
to the TA husband or?
Well, my
When was
father
that?
and my stepfather, growing up, both molested me. And then at the point where I was looking at, as part of this community, looking at what could have affected me in my relationships, for the first time, I actually addressed that issue. And it was no longer a secret. I would shake someone's hand and I'd go, "Hi, I'm Marel. I was molested." I mean, that was my, I wanted to get that out in the open because it was such a secret.
Wow.
My mother's rule at home was you couldn't talk about anything that might upset anyone. So it didn't get talked about. And, but then one day I realized, wait a second, I'm introducing myself as a woman who is molested. That's not who I am. So I stopped doing that. And that was a major decision of my life. It's like, well, then if I'm not that, I'm not the good girl who followed all the rules, going to school and going to college and getting married. I'm not that person. And I'm not the person that got molested. So who am I? And that kind of set me up for my next chapter in my life, you could say, which was I found the relationship of my dreams. He was just an amazing, amazing man. And we had a wonderful relationship for 5 years, and then he passed away. He had Hodgkin's disease when he was 17, and it created scar tissue that calcified over the years, and he died of heart failure, basically.
Oh.
And but that was just like, that was everything I'd ever dreamed of in a relationship. And his best friend, after Gary passed away, his best friend said, "I'd like you to come and check out the Landmark Forum." So I did, and I got that there's nothing written in stone about what's happened to us. And I actually, after not having a relationship with my father after 47 years, I called him in a 5-minute conversation, said, "I'm asking for your forgiveness because I've made up a lot of stories about you over the years, and I'm tired of being bitter and resentful. Will you forgive me?" And that started a relationship. He called me every day for the next 3 months, paid for my plane ticket to come and visit, and we just had it out. We duked it out. He said, "You can tell me, you can say anything to me." And I did. And I came away from that experience going, wow, I have a fallible human man in my life as a father that I can love. And he died shortly after that also. But it was like, what's possible? If that's possible, what's possible? And so that's what I've been exploring ever since. And I've done things like accepted a 1-year job in San Francisco, like I'd never lived anywhere other than San Diego. And that was, that was a real adventure. And then my mother said, well, come stay with me. And so for 12 years, I stayed in a home with my mom, and I was precious. I got to hug her every morning and tell her I love her. And then she passed away.
Oh, now where was that? Was that back in San Diego?
Yeah. After the year in San Francisco, I came back to San Diego.
And did she know any of what had happened to you when you were, with them?
When my sisters and I talked with her about it, and it was hard for her to accept to start with. But after all three of us confirmed that this is what had happened, I don't think she ever really got over the fact that she didn't know and didn't do anything about it. And
all three of your sisters it happened to?
Yeah.
And did you know growing up that it was also happening to them, or did you find out later?
No, that was something.
No?
I mean, we were so isolated. We so couldn't talk about anything that might upset each other, that it wasn't until I was like 28 that it occurred to me, oh my God, I wonder if this went on with my sisters. And so I started talking to them about it. And yeah.
Wow. And did you ever complete it with your stepfather too, or was
he passed away before I realized that it was possible?
Okay.
And but there have been a couple of times when I've really looked at the relationship, and there was one time someone said, there's always something good you can find. There's always, in every situation. I thought about that, and I thought about that. I said, well, my stepfather did relate to me as a smart woman who was going to go to college. I mean, that was just assumed.
Yeah.
And I now know that there are many, many women who they don't have that. They have something the opposite of that. Oh no, don't show how intelligent you are or anything like that. You don't need to go to college. So that was something.
Yeah.
That was something that he contributed.
Amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. And on this show, we talk about what people don't think they can or should or want to say. And what I found is, even though it's very difficult, it's very freeing.
Absolutely.
As I'm sure, when you were at the Human Potential and you started saying I was molested, was that very, very difficult to say at first?
Well, being in the community and the conversations and support we had, it didn't seem difficult. It was kind of like, it was almost as though I put it up as kind of like an armor.
Oh, okay.
Like, okay, I'm Marel. I was molested. You take that.
But I would say that's the first step to freedom, is being able to, I say puke it out so you can create something new. If you hadn't have said that, it would just be on top of that.
Yeah, I remember one time I was out with a camping group and we were sitting around the fire, and I mentioned something about that in a conversation with someone. And later I heard that there was a mother who was there with her 16-year-old daughter who thought that was very inappropriate for me to do. Like I was just a terrible person to bring up that topic. And I thought, your daughter's 16. She should know that this kind of thing, can go on. She shouldn't, because anyway. Yeah. There's a lot that can be said in that whole world, but anyway.
Yeah. And you had said that you went to get fixed. Did you know what you were trying to fix, or did you finally, we don't
just
fix ourselves, but where did that end up going? Yeah.
Well, where it ended up going is realizing that thinking that how someone else treated me was going to, quote, heal me, that was one of the reasons that I left the community, because that basis of operating just, I mean, what I experienced was I continually recreated the unhappiness, and I could see it in other people, that they would have like an insight, and something would shift, and then the next day it was back again, the same thing that they had. And I really got, oh, as humans, we just recreate and recreate and recreate, until something happens. And usually it's, I don't know, for many people, it's a great tragedy. For me, it was doing the landmark forum, taking responsibility for that automaticness of my humanity.
Wow. Now,
so that awareness, and then the ability to accept my humanity, that, man, I'm a jerk. And I'm pretty ridiculous,
And accepting it, yes.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, okay, this is it. And then taking action based on what I say I'm committed to. I don't have to pay attention to all that, stuff going around.
Yeah. Now, when you say perpetuated it, in some places we say because we keep talking about it. How did you perpetuate? I don't know if it was the unhappiness or your situation. How would you say? And then you stopped. Was it by continuing to talk about it, or just not being aware?
Yeah, continuing to talk about it, thinking that talking about it would impact the other person, who would then act differently, and then I would feel differently.
Okay. Wow.
You see how
that's a lot of work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've tried that before. It doesn't work.
No, because basically the responsibility's over here.
Yeah.
Whenever you say, oh, it's because the way someone's treating me or the circumstances or something, then you continue to be a victim.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to something today, and the guy was saying they don't have to change. How you think about them can change, and then they'll change. So it's we are, who we are, that they are, something like that. And then people will change when I could think someone's the biggest asshole, or I can think they're great, and they will occur accordingly to.
Yeah, they show up that way.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Like if you're going, that person's a jerk, that person's a jerk, you're not going to see anything else.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, okay. So you left because of that you were waiting for them to change so you'd be different. Like what, after 20 years, wasn't that scary?
Well, I have to admit that Gary coming into my life was a big factor at that point.
Oh, and how'd you meet him?
For fun, one of the other women in the community was from New York. And by this point, it's pretty late. We were thinking, well, let's try meeting some more people. So she and I went to a singles party for former New Yorkers. Oh. I was a former New Yorker, but anyway, so I went, and it was kind of like at this a bar patio kind of situation. And I'm talking to various people, and I thought, who am I actually interested in? And I picked out two guys just from visually. And I said, yeah, I'd really like getting to know, one or both of those. So one of them was out on the patio, and he comes walking toward me. And I said, I'm going to ask him to sit down at my table and have a conversation. So just as he got to my table, he said, do you mind if I sit here? And so that's how we met.
Oh.
And he really liked to travel, do international travel. And I had just happened to return from a trip to India. So we were talking about that. And I think he got the impression that I also was a world traveler. I wasn't. This was just like my second trip out of the US, but, and he also assumed I had lots of frequent flyer miles. Anyway, so we got together and we did take a lot of different trips together. That was, yeah.
And was his death sudden?
Well, not exactly. Right from the beginning when I met him, he said, I'm going to be very happy when I get my AARP membership. And I said, why is that? He says, that means I made it to 50. I really didn't expect to make it to 50. So, so then I found out about the cancer when he was 17, and one of his lungs had been removed and he was not feeling so well. So I just kind of wrote it off to, I don't know, whatever. But then he did get evaluated medically. And that's when he found out that he was one of the longest living people who had had this condition when they were young. And most of them had already passed away. And the scar tissue around his heart had calcified. So he did an operation. It was a very long operation. And he survived the operation, but he didn't survive the recovery. He got a blood clot. But I and his family were in ICU for 10 weeks. And that was actually one of the most intense periods of my life. I mean, and I was happy. It was really weird. Here, the man that I love is in ICU. And yet excuse me just a moment. And every day it was like, okay, I'm waking up. I'm going to go visit Gary. I'm going to spend the day with him.
Was that after the surgery or before?
After the surgery.
So he lasted 10 weeks. Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm going to turn my phone off. I so apologize. I should have done that earlier.
Well, we're going to go to our halftime break.
We are.
Commercial from our sponsor, my program, and the sponsor. And then when we come back, we're going to hear all about what you're doing now and how all these wonderful people that you're helping. So thank you, Marel.
Thank you.
Are you inspired? Are you living a life story you are proud to tell? Are you actively pursuing and creating the life of your dreams? If not, you really need Hillary's AAA program for freedom. Just visit gettingrealwithhillary.com and schedule time with Hillary today.
Has social emotional learning become just one more thing on your teachers' plates? Do teachers and students both find it boring and ineffective? Then bring Kikori to your school. Kikori transforms classrooms through experiential SEL activities that help students play, reflect, connect, and grow. Even better, students say it's more fun than recess. Schedule a no-obligation conversation at kikoriapp.com/bringkikori. KIKORI.
That's my daughter's company. It gets me every
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's flying back from Brazil right now because she was supposed to go to Costa Rica, but she didn't know. She was having too much fun. She didn't know she needed a yellow fever vaccine to get to Costa Rica. So anyway, she's coming here. So can't wait to see her. She's had a challenging 48 hours, let's say. So anyway. Okay. Well, I'm a crier. That's not new to anybody who's seen any of these shows. All right, Marel, we are ready for you to say what you're doing now and who you're helping. And here's some stories about what you've done in your fiduciary capacity. And what again, your mission is to bring dignity and workability to your clients. So
yeah.
How would you like to start?
Well, first, I like to share with people that how I became a professional fiduciary was a little unusual. I got laid off in 2009. I'd been the director of operations for a small software development company, and it got purchased, and my job was redundant. So I got laid off. And that was the time when the government was giving lots of unemployment money. It was really quite nice. It was very generous of them. And so I went around and I interviewed a lot of professional people that I respected and showed them my resume, talked to them about what they did and so on. And one day someone said, have you considered becoming a professional fiduciary? And I said, let me research that. So I researched it, and I was just amazed because my qualifications with my past experience and my college education and so on basically qualified me.
Wait, weren't you a chemistry major?
It didn't matter whether it was chemistry. It was just a college degree.
Oh, okay. I was going to say
college degree.
I was going to say, how does chemistry figure in here? Wow. Okay.
No, I guess they figure you're fairly intelligent if you made it through college.
And what does that actually mean, a professional fiduciary?
Okay, well, in California and about 3 other states, it's actually written into the law. We have a law in California that in order to manage the affairs of 2 or more people who are not related to you, you have to be licensed. So there's a licensing process, and there's a professional fiduciary bureau in California that manages all of that. So you have some base. Go ahead.
It is that. I mean, I have a financial planner. Is a fiduciary different?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A planner is now most professional fiduciaries use investment advisors rather than doing it themselves.
Okay.
Because if you think, you can kind of think about a professional fiduciary as being managing an umbrella. Like there's insurance planning, there's investment planning, there's health planning, there's end of life planning, there's all sorts of things involved, and the fiduciary kind of oversees all of it to make sure it's all being done copacetically and with integrity.
So the states that don't have that, like
the states that don't have that, they have a category called guardian, which is a little different, because when you need a guardian, it's like you're automatically considered incompetent.
Okay.
And that's not the case in having a professional fiduciary, working with a professional fiduciary. You don't have to be incompetent in the slightest.
Okay. All right.
It's that for whatever reason, you don't, you just want some assistance, and you want someone who's capable and is licensed and is ethical and all of that.
And how did you learn how to be that? What did it sounds like it would take a long time to learn everything?
Well, there were classes that are part of the process of being licensed.
Okay.
There's different classes, and then you take an exam, both a national exam and a California exam. And then you talk to people. Mostly it's attorneys and CPAs that I get my referrals from. I'm also part of a professional California Professional Association of California, and they have a listing where you can go and you can search, for different. Mostly people choose geographics.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So that's how I became a professional fiduciary.
And now.
And now, because of my experience in the community working with an autistic person, I really knew what families with special needs children, go through, what they have to deal with, So I got involved in a networking group that dealt with special needs trusts. And that's where I got my first referrals from attorneys who I had met in this networking group. And so a third of my clients are special needs trusts. And the tricky thing about special needs trust is if there's a special needs trust, it's supposed to only benefit the particular fiduciary, the particular beneficiary, sorry. Okay. And, but the thing is that special needs person has a family, and the family contributes hugely to the happiness and workability of that special needs person's life. So there's balancing the family and the special needs person and the finances, and that takes a lot of compassion and also understanding of the law, because mostly special needs people get public benefits, but public benefits have a whole slew of rules that you have to follow to keep them qualified and yet be able to use what other resources are available to give them a quality life. So that can be tricky. And the one that I'm dealing with right now that's the most extreme is a special needs trust for a beneficiary who was diagnosed schizophrenic many years ago. And 2 years ago, he chose to stop taking he stopped taking his medication. And he's now being evicted from the community. We purchased him a manufactured home so he could live in it, which seemed to work well. And then his parents passed away, and he completely went off the rails in terms of threatening to kill his neighbors and beating up people. And he won't even talk to me. He just threatens me, saying that I'm a federal police person and I have a gun and I'm going to blow your brains out and things like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he's being evicted probably in the next month and a half from where he lives. And if police will take him to in California, there's something called a 5150, which is if someone is determined to be dangerous to themselves or other people, they go to the hospital for evaluation. And then if they're evaluated to be dangerous to themselves or other people, then they go into the public conservator system. And then they get treatment whether they want it or not. And his brother and I are hoping that that's what will happen, because voluntarily he won't do anything.
But now, if he's threatening you, as a fiduciary, can you just say, hey, I'm not going to work with you anymore because it's too dangerous, or are you obligated?
I could resign, and ethically, it would be required. Yeah, ethically, I would find someone else to step in. Okay. See, I'm not responsible for him as a person. He's responsible for himself. I'm responsible for his trust money. So I've kind of kept that separate, and I've been a partner with his brother to see what we could do to support him. But so far, he's been unwilling to cooperate. So, like the brother just loves the fact that I'm there, that I'm working with him. He says, are we paying you enough money? So there's like a deep appreciation for what I do. And so that's one example of a special needs.
And how does, I mean, it's a personal question, but how do you get paid? Out of the estate or the something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of the trust. Yeah.
So it's not, he's not doing that. It's like you said, it's an umbrella. He's part of the package or something. Okay.
Right.
All right. So go ahead. What's another story?
Okay, let's see. Well, today after this meeting, I'm going to be going to an apartment about 20 miles away to do the final clean out for one of my clients who passed away. She had cerebral palsy and not much money, but I'm in her will as the executor of her will, and we're not going to be doing probate. Because in California, you don't have to do probate unless it's over $166,000 in the estate, and she has a very modest estate. So this is a tip for your listeners. If you Hillary are put in charge of someone who the affairs of someone and they pass away, the very first thing you want to do is get to the bank and get out as much cash as you possibly can.
Is that legal?
You're going to be responsible for a lot of expenses, and the bank, as soon as they find out that the person has died, will freeze the account and you won't have access to it.
Now, is that legal? Or
I've been doing it for many years, and I let the attorneys know I'm doing it, and no one said don't do that. So
could you have access to the funds because you're the fiduciary? You're already entitled to the funds.
Eventually, like months and months down the line, I would do the process where the bank would let me have the cash. But in the meantime, what am I supposed to do? Spend my own money? No, thank you.
Right. So, wow. Okay. Good to know.
So that's a good tip
from Marel. A tip from Marel. Yeah. Good. Good to know.
Yeah. So
you're probably not thinking when someone's passed away about going to the bank. You're probably thinking,
well, I mean, you could say I was as callous as possible, but when my fiance passed away, that's what I did.
Wow.
I was his power of attorney, so I could legally access it. But the moment the bank would find out that he actually passed away, they close it down. See, that's another tip. When you're a power of attorney for someone, that ends the moment they pass away, and then it becomes an estate and handled whatever legal way an estate is handled. So it's different when it's the person's alive than when the person's passed away.
Okay. Wow. Good to know.
Yeah, good to know.
Yeah. So you were going to pretend I was a client and you were going to ask
I was
me
just
some
thinking
questions
about that, Hillary. Are you willing to get grilled a little bit here?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Saying what can't be said, sure.
So if you came to me and you said, Marel, I'd like assistance in setting up my estate plans to take, to make sure that everything's taken care of. I mean, I'm healthy, I'm happy right now, but I could get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I would go, okay, great. So I want you to know, I don't write up any of the legal documents.
Okay. But I was going to say, is this a will? Okay, it's not. All right, good.
No, I wouldn't. So I would ask you, what kind of documents do you already have? Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? Do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a power of attorney for healthcare? Those are the 4 elements that every person, well, maybe if you don't have any assets at all, a will and a power and the 2 power of attorneys. Trust is kind of a different category. But every single person, as soon as they're 18, should have those 3 documents. A will, power of attorney for finances, power of attorney for healthcare. So do you have those?
I have a will. I thought I was doing great because I had a will. I didn't know.
Well, that's great. But what?
So for healthcare and what was the other thing? A power of attorney for
finances.
Finances.
Now, those are really,
I don't know. It's a good question, but I don't think people know this. So are you going to put this on your website or something so people can find you?
Well, that's an interesting idea. I don't have that currently on my website, but that might be, I'll make a note of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because I didn't
again,
know that.
I don't write up those documents. You would
Right.
need to see your attorney, but they're pretty simple documents.
Okay.
Now, you don't live in California, so I don't know the rules of the road for your state. If you lived in California and you owned any kind of property, you definitely want to put it into a trust, because if you have property and it's not in a trust, you automatically are required in California to do probate. Now, probate is a pain in the rear and it can be expensive. So, and it also means that it's not your wishes that are applied to the situation. It's the law of the land. So say you had a piece of property in California and you really wanted it to go to your second cousin, but you didn't have a trust that said that I want my property to go to my second cousin. If you passed away and it went to probate, it wouldn't go to your second cousin. It would go first to your children, first to your spouse, then to your children. And there's like this whole long line of ways that the state of California says that any property that's not in trust is going to go to blah, blah, blah.
Even if it's in my will?
Yep.
What?
Yep.
Now,
if you have a really smart executor of your will, they might be able to go into court and get that changed. But
you're dead, so you don't.
Yeah.
Kind of messed up. All right. So, all right. Well, that's good to know. Now, I don't know about Connecticut. I thought you have a will, you're good, but
well, it's a good start.
There's things we don't know. All right.
But
all right,
see, the will only kicks in when you're deceased, right?
Right.
So what happens if you get, like, I have a friend whose former wife lives in Colorado, got hit by a drunk driver, and she's in a coma. If she has a power of attorney naming her daughter to manage her affairs, but if she hadn't had that, it would have been a real hassle to legally go through the process of saying, this is my mother, I should handle her affairs.
Oh, God.
But if it's already written, so
wow.
What you would do is you would decide, okay, if something happens to me and I'm not able to make my own decisions, or I need help making my decisions, or I need someone to go to the bank, but I can't go to the bank. So whoever you name as your power of attorney would be able to do that.
I'm going to check to see when I did my will, if these kind of things were in it,
That's an excellent idea. And then the power of attorney for healthcare, again, I don't know. I think this is pretty broad across the nation. That's the person who is legally able to work with the medical people about making sure that if you can't say what it is that you want done with your health, that they would be able to stand in and say, well, yeah, I know that Hillary doesn't want to live on a breathing tube and intravenous feeding and things like that, unless she's going to get better. And they go, no, she's brain dead. Well, I know Hillary doesn't. She wouldn't want to keep surviving under those conditions.
My mother used to say she didn't want my father in charge because he'd pull the plug while she was still breathing. Yeah, she's sorry. I was just thinking about that. You got to pick the right person who's going to do what you want.
Yeah. My fiance,
we're almost at the end, Meryl.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
So I want to make sure people, know how to find you, and then we're gonna have our closing commercial.
Okay.
How can people? I mean, obviously you've opened up my eyes that there's so many things.
I have a website. It's called marelsterlingfiduciary.com. So that's a good way to find me.
Okay.
And I take phone calls on my cell phone.
All right. What is it?
619 227 5080.
5080. So Marel Sterling, 619-227-5080, marelsterlingfiduciary.com. I would definitely look her up, especially if you're in California, because there's a lot that we don't know as regular people. So thank you so much, Marel. This was very informative and educational. You obviously know your job and you're doing great for your clients who maybe can't help themselves, or maybe they can, but obviously, you know, when you're talking to an expert, they know things you don't know. So thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Anything you want to say in closing?
Well, Hillary, it's been a blast doing this, and I just realized I have so many other stories. Maybe I should write a book.
Write a book, and also come on again. We'll hear some more stories.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll make a list of the stories I didn't get to say today.
Yes, and thank you. Thank you for your you know, sharing the stuff that you went through that wasn't easy. And again, sorry about your fiance.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great guy. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Getting Real with Hillary show. We hope you were entertained and inspired. Please subscribe to Hillary's newsletter. Go to gettingrealwithhillary.com for more freedom techniques and fantastic stories and links to other great stuff. And don't forget to tune in every week on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on BBS Radio TV. And let's get real. Let's get connected. Let's get inspired and create that life you love.